because we are well on our way to completing the first segment of this class. We would have already went through the different approaches. We would have gone through the from an individual and then from an organization. We talked about last week the corporate social responsibility as well as environmental impact and how those things might affect our organization. Today, we're going to be talking about ethics and the individual. We're going to be defining and distinguishing the difference between a profession from any other type of business activity. We're going to explain the purpose of codes of practice. We're going to have to be able to differentiate between code of practice, codes of conduct, and code of ethics. Describe what is included in these codes of conduct and ethics issued by professional bodies. And that word professional, really digging into that and seeing what that is about. And then we're going to describe the principles that may be included in a corporate code. So prior to today, I had asked you to look at your company's mission statement, if there is one, mission and vision statements, and to see if the strategies in the office, and now I'm asking to check to see if what you see in the strategies and structure in the office, is it aligned with what they say is their mission and their vision? We're going to also talk about a profession is normally distinguished from other types of work. And so words like barriers to entry, integrity, reputation, continuing professional development, rules-based approach to ethics, principle-based approach, and any corporate codes that might exist. Those are the things that we're going to be talking about today. And so I'm going on the assumption, and I use that word very lightly, that you all have read chapter 4. And the main thing about chapter 4 in the introduction is that we're going to be discussing the difference between a profession and professional, what they call a professional. And we're going to be talking about and seeing how in the chapters that follow, what is that code of practice and ethics that professionals should be doing? What are those basic core values? What are those morals for a professional? That's what we're going to be looking at. I see a Tia dropped off, so internet is still challenging. We're going to be analyzing jobs to see the situation and the proposed way forward, and how individuals of a firm can act in a situation, and we will evaluate that based on what is happening. On page 116 at the very bottom, it talks about what is a profession. And they talk about the word profession is often applied to any career or vocation. But the question I have for you is, when you think of, or when people use the word profession, are they necessarily thinking about what are those occupations that comes to mind immediately you hear the word profession?
I really just think about, when you say profession, I really look at it from the aspect as what is your vocation? Because anything can be a profession. A mason, a carpenter. We would say in the Bahamas that's our trade, but we wouldn't use the word profession.
That is correct. if I told somebody I was a carpenter, they would not I mean, they would not necessarily think of profession as it relates to a carpenter or a mason or some contractor.
Anything that's white collar, I guess they look at as being profession.
What would you call white collar?
White collar would be anybody that would be working in a bank, a lawyer, an accountant. What else? A doctor.
Mm-hmm.
All of those particular jobs that they would think would be of, I'm trying to use the right words now. They would look at those as being high value jobs.
Okay. What about engineers? And what about real estate agents?
Crooks, sorry, that came out wrong.
Okay. So when people think about professions generally, they like to think about accounts. Bankers are just coming on stream, but it was always your lawyer, your doctor, your accountant. Not so much even teachers. And so they were looking at the high net earners as profession and professional as anything else. But on top, on page 117, they give us 9 features of a profession. And they list the main distinguishing features of a profession are specialism. And the specialism is relied upon by the public or sector. So you have to be a professional and somebody who the public relies on to give a high level of integrity, high information or specialized information. The integrity may be extended to their personal life of the individual, which means that certain life events may result in an expulsion from the profession. I know now investment banking and the whole, in our country, the general populace is not investment savvy. And so persons who hold themselves out to give investment advice could fall into that category where they have a special knowledge and skill and expertise in order to approach the general public. They also talk about barriers to entry in that job, regarded as profession, usually require a completion of a rigorous examination-based qualification. We also talk about the activities overseen and sometimes governed by a professional association, the Bar Association, BICA, the accounting firm, the accounting group. We have other industry and trade associations. The Professional Association Institute sets minimum acceptable standards. They have a contractors association as well. But are they able to influence the standard of contractors who are not their members? And those few contractors who are not members, who are not doing as professional a job, are they the ones who the general public, or is it because of them that the general public don't see contractors as a profession or as professionals, as it were? That's just a rhetorical question. And then the features of the profession, there should be a disciplinary consequence of failing to comply with the minimum acceptable standard. And then there's reputational consequences of failing to comply with the minimum standards, which may result in refusal of a practicing license. And then lastly, this association or institute may lay down requirements for ongoing continued professional development. Now I remember, I think it was our second session when the question came up, who is a professional? And the question was, would you consider a call girl or a prostitute a professional? And the argument was, yes, in certain jurisdiction, But let's go down the list. If these are the features of a professional, it involves some forms of specialization. Yes, no? Anybody but Kendrick? Is prostitution involving a form of specialization?
I mean, I feel like a degree of specialization probably would be more profitable, but I don't know if it's a necessity.
Okay. Is this specialization relied upon by the public or section of it? Is it expected by the members of the public to maintain a high level of integrity?
I guess not, because that would be something frowned upon, if that makes sense.
Okay. Would certain life events may result in expulsion, imprisonment, insolvency?
The opposite.
The opposite meaning what? What do you mean by the opposite?
That I don't think that it would cause any consequence versus a promotion.
Okay. So how would one get ahead in that profession or that activity? Let's do call it a profession here. We're going down the 9 features of a profession.
You're still talking about the prostitution?
Yes. Mm-hmm. We're
Well,
holding it up to the 9 features.
I think it would cause some consequences because I think that's against the law. If found doing it, you could be locked up and charged.
Locally, it is, yes. Are there any
Yes.
barriers to entry in the job which require a completion of a rigorous examination-based qualification? So out of the first 4, the only one that might appear or could go either way is the specialization.
I think so, because even to speak on Atia's point to the imprisonment, I was reading that point to say expulsion in the professional industry versus legal ramifications. So I don't think that would.
Well, this integrity may extend to the personal life of the individual, which means that certain life events may result in expulsion from the association, expulsion from the group that they might be a member of. I think the imprisonment and against the law and a criminal perspective negates the high level of integrity. But they necessarily or may not necessarily be expelled from an association of some sort. And it depends on, I think like Kendrick would say, it depends on the level of earnings, I guess, and how it is, how the services are marketed. That might make a difference. The activities are overseen or sometimes governed by a professional association. No. The professional association is who sets minimum accepted standards of behavior. No. Disciplinary consequences of failing to comply with the minimum acceptable standard. That does not apply. Are there any reputational consequences of failing to comply with the minimum standards? So Kendrick, unless we are...
Yeah, I can make an argument. I can make an argument.
Make an argument for which one of these features?
I can make an argument basically for the first 4.
Exactly. Go ahead. Because hold on, Kenrick. 1 second. Let me ask this question and then you could go. This is for here in Nassau, or this is where it is
We're talking about here,
accepted?
we're talking about here in the Bahamas.
Oh, okay. Alrighty.
Okay. In my defense, when I made that comment, it was referencing the actual societies that actually considered that a norm, and it was an acceptable behavior, and it was also legalized by the local authorities.
Okay.
It's legalized by the local authorities.
Okay, so your argument for specialization. What is special about them?
Specialization is that if we were using the aforementioned Amsterdam, there are different types of sex workers. There are those who work the windows. Those are those who take clients. There are those who work the streets.
Well, how would they qualify for specialization?
Because they're offering specialized service in unique ways. I mean,
Specialized service is not how it's marketed. In other words, if I go to the dock, or I go to a home, or I go to whatever else, that's only where I am giving my service. It does not say I have, because at the end of the day, the service that is rendered to the participant could very well be one and the same.
that is true. That is true. I agree with that.
So there isn't a specialization in terms of the services that's rendered. What you have explained is the different marketing devices that might be used.
Okay.
And if you are prepared to engage in that occupation, there are no barriers to entry in the job necessarily, generally.
Miss Fraser, you know
Yeah.
like how you said once upon a time on Bay Street, working in a jewelry store, you had to have a certain look. You might have a high-end company and you have to have a certain look in order to make the cut with them.
Mm-hmm. Agree. So are you saying specialization could be physical attributes as it relates to a particular market?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in on that? Because notice I'm choosing my words very, very carefully.
Yeah, because for instance, say you stripping in the dance club or whatever, you gotta have a certain body figure. And I don't think height is a factor, but yeah,
It else.
it does.
Okay.
And then too, when I don't know how far it is 3 years down, but in reference to you, someone said that promotion, if
Marketing.
if example, you're in high demand as an individual working there, everybody always call for you. That's pretty much promotion. Yes, marketing, pretty much.
Yeah,
no?
but the question was it specialization?
Well, they had to specialize in something if the people keep calling for them. You know what? Let me mute me. Hold on. Hang on.
Okay.
Specialization.
Okay.
Miss Fraser.
Yes.
But now it's not all about the prostitution anymore. We have advanced into sugar babies. So you could be a sugar baby.
Time out. What's a sugar baby? Somebody let me know.
Yeah, I was lost. I was lost as well.
Yeah, I don't know either. Inform us, please.
Okay,
You're a screen breaker. Make that make sense.
Oh, you mean the opposite of a sugar daddy?
Right. So sugar
Okay.
babies, we don't do prostitution anymore. We become
Okay.
sugar babies, which is a
Yeah,
step
I
above.
had to think about it. I had to really think about it. Yeah. Okay.
So
Okay.
the sugar babies are those that the sugar daddies know they are there to be financially supported by them. So you could step away or step out of the prostitutional ring into the sugar baby ring, and men and women do it now. It's more popular and in demand than it is
Okay.
having to go to that
So
strip club.
that would answer the specialization.
Right. So
Okay.
we
Gotcha.
have now marketed to a step above. I've been promoted.
Okay. So would you when you think of a professional then, would you think of a salesperson as a professional? A generic salesperson? I'm selling jewelry, I'm selling insurance, I'm selling cars. Do they
Yes,
come to you?
because you go through a set of courses, especially for like insurance. You have to pass the course
Mhm, to
and
get the license, right?
in
Mhm.
order to get it. So yes, I think yes, they're a form of professionals.
So what about the car salesman?
The car salesman is just a hustler. He know what to do. He's a hustler.
My God, hustler.
The main thing we want you guys to get sensitized to is that on page 117, there is a list of features that distinguishes a professional from anything else. And you have to be able to understand how these features apply. Because in the first part of this chapter, it actually goes into specialism, what it means, what is the difference between qualifying to be a member of a particular association. It actually talked about this specialism is actually relied upon by the public. They have to rely upon sound advice from those who are qualified to give it. And hold up any occupation to the magnet or the magnifying glass of these features of specialization. I mean, these features of a profession. That's what I want you to be able to do.
So,
And so, sorry?
play devil's advocate. That means that in anything that society considers taboo cannot be a profession then. Because if we looking at, okay, what do they call them again, Tiro? Babies?
Sugar babies.
Throw that up there. Who is regulating the sugar babies? Do they have a board or on oversight committee? Where do I lodge the complaints? And who's getting locked up? Who's a sugar baby? I just ask.
When the sugar daddy leave you, that's it. You got to find another one.
Do they have continuing professional development? Any reputational consequences of failing to comply with the minimum standards, which may result in a refusal of a practicing of any licenses that they may have?
Can they be revoked? Can the license be revoked?
Are there any disciplinary consequences of failing to comply with the minimum acceptable standards?
Withholding of the allowance could be.
You're really stretching this. Okay, all right. I stand to be in the middle of the ground on this. In my world, I would say they would not be considered a profession based on the 9 features of the profession here. And I know that some of you are prepared to stand in their defense, come up with at least 3 or 4 of the 9 features. But for our purposes of this course, these distinguishing features of a profession is what we would want to apply to any occupation and to decide whether we could, where we can, without a shadow of a doubt, say, yes, this is a profession. That particular occupation has some shadows of doubts.
So
Okay?
you could
I don't
just say,
know. I don't
Hey,
know.
Megan.
Sorry?
you could just
My name
say,
is Freya.
you could just say, can we collect an IB offer it? And then that can cut out couple.
Is there
Like
any
that.
NIV contribution?
Exactly,
NIB contributions.
exactly.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I never thought about that. I mean, see, y'all could get really creative with you already. Boy, Kendrick, you're not going to win tonight, Kendrick. They are out to get you. It is a service that is relied upon the public, but how does the general public know who is qualified to give this kind of service or not? And any advice on the service that might say they are or are not. Okay. And bankers and accountants and engineers and lawyers and doctors are the ones that people normally think about when they think about the professions. In your institutions, professional abilities and the things that you are learning and getting certified in order to advance your careers. It talks about on page 119, high levels of integrity. And the word integrity refers to having high moral values. Integrity is one of the roles of a professional body to reduce the threats that arise from those of low integrity by setting out appropriate sanctions should this adversely affect the client. And many professional bodies expect high standards to be maintained even before qualification. And so when people know that you are a member of a professional body and they know and are aware of the standards of that body, then it puts you in a good stead to say, yes, I am a professional. And that's the whole idea behind becoming members of a professional body, so that you can tout that as a marketing ploy to individuals you want to do business with, that you are a member of this body. And they know, should you fall below a certain standard of behavior or there's some disciplinary action, if it's brought to light that you actually did something against this code of conduct or code of ethics of this particular body. And how do you feel about publishing names in the papers where this person is no longer employed by, or this person is no longer a member of?
I feel like it's necessary for certain professions, especially for those persons who would usually be or hold public trust, like a lawyer, for instance, or I would even go as far as to say people who you trust to help you make decisions, or you pay money to, so you know you're not going to be giving them, like insurance agents. They come and collect your funds, but if they're no longer working for the company, you don't know that. It'll be good for that information to be published before your funds get misappropriated.
Okay. What about a lawyer being disbarred?
Yeah, I think that needs to be out there. I think that definitely needs to be out there. Also, when he has been suspended as well, I think that should be brought forward so that you don't seek his advice or counsel at the time, and then he's still charging you when he is being sat down for a period of time when cannot practice law. I think that's something that should be made public. I don't know if they do that for those that are suspended. I don't ever remember seeing anything about anybody being disbarred, either being publicized in the Gazette, right? Or the newspaper, sorry.
I don't remember seeing any either, but
We really don't know who is being reprimanded, and they're in the public eye. And you go to them when you have certain matters as well. So I think that's something that they should do.
okay. I can't remember seeing too many of them. I don't know if the medical association have doctors that they say for whatever reason should no longer be able to practice, and what is the format for advising the general public. We just take it upon, or we leave it up to that individual to behave in the appropriate way.
They cloak one another, I guess.
I had to wait for a long while cloaking. Okay, all right. So here again, we have two scenarios that I want you guys to have a look at. On page 121, it's called Question Time 28. And the second one is on page 122, Question Time 29.
Oh, they just need to lock him up. Sorry, that's what I read. I couldn't.
Kendrick, behave tonight, please. Behave tonight.
All right.
I am, has everybody gotten their book as yet? I know Kendrick, Tira, and Shanquel.
I have a book.
Okay, so everyone has a book except Tamiko. Tamiko, let me say, you're not going to pass this exam without a book. Or pass this class without a book. You really need to get.
Let me block. Let me.
I didn't hear that. I'm
I
good.
can reach to the computer to tell you I got it.
Oh, I see. Okay,
That's what I
great.
went to say.
Okay, great. Because I want to put you in a breakout room now for question time 28 and 29. And I wanted to make sure that I was putting everyone in the right group. Group 1 is going to do question time 28, and group 2 is going to do question time 29. Okay. Quick cases. Somebody tell me what are the 4 steps in analyzing cases? Anyone remembers? Anyone want to guess?
They have to be in order.
It helps.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you identify the facts.
Thank you, the character. Let me see what else I remember writing down. Hold on.
You analyze if there are any breaches.
Identify the facts. Second one was what?
Analyze the case to see if there are any breaches.
No, I thought consider the theories.
Consider the theories involved.
Oh.
And then you make a decision based on the fact that there were any breaches.
And support your conclusion.
Conclusion with case studies, examples.
If there are, or support your conclusion with
Examples
examples.
or case
Yeah.
study.
Yeah. And that's usually a plus at the end. But you have to be able to identify the facts of the case before you do anything else. So in your presentation just now on question time 28 and 29, this is what I want you to begin practicing to do. Whoever's speaking on behalf of your group. Okay. I gave you a minute to kind of gather all your thoughts. Let's begin with question time number 28. Who's in that group? I think Tamiko and her team. Sean Quell and Tira.
Okay. To identify the facts, Teresa has been transferred to the small business unit of the bank.
Mm-hmm.
She has to advise proprietors of these businesses and arrange for appropriate products to be provided. She has to visit 5 of the most important clients of the branch. One of the clients is a proprietor of a highly successful private shop that sells goods at a highly explicit sexual nature. Teresa is uncomfortable with the on-site visit, and the manager states that she must act in the best interest of the bank, which is to maintain the ongoing direct contact with corporate clients. Consider the theories. And consider none, yeah. I really didn't put any of the theories into.
Well, if you answer that question, should Teresa be compelled to make the on-site visit?
Well, I feel as though she should not be forced to do anything that she's not comfortable with, even though that is required by the bank to do the site visits.
So in answer to the theory part, we're talking about her contract of employment.
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am.
She signed up for that.
But that is the theory. That is the theory, the contract of employment.
I don't know. I ain't in a class.
No, I'm telling you that's what's being called the question.
I was answering my son, sorry.
Oh, okay. So we're talking about either at common law or either under her contract of employment.
The contract of employment.
Yes.
Okay.
Having said that, your group decided that she shouldn't be forced to.
Well, I didn't feel that way. I figured she signed up for it. No, I didn't feel it because she signed up for it. She signed up for it, and for them to pull her to deal with their high-end clients, that means at the end of the day, she's top notch inside the bank. So she's being well paid for that.
But
You could
it
correct me if I'm
goes,
wrong.
it
How I
goes
see.
against, it
Okay,
goes
okay,
against.
so just for the
Against
benefit,
what?
just for the benefit of those who's not in the group, let me just make sure I understand what I'm hearing. In the group, there was a difference of opinion as to how
Yes, we
they should
split.
be approached. Okay, fine. Atia. No, Chanquel, no, Atia was not in that group. Chanquel was in that group. So we've heard one say she is a specialist in her field.
Correct.
And as a specialist in the field, we are assuming she's highly paid. And as she's highly paid to deal with these high net worth clients, then she should be forced to go.
I wouldn't say force.
Well, you have
I
to
wouldn't
go
say
'cause
force.
you
She
say-
shouldn't not, they shouldn't have to force her. You signed up for that.
Well, Tamiko, one of the things, this is why we say analyze the facts. The fact is, she is uncomfortable.
Mhm. That's the bottom line.
She could tell management that she's uncomfortable. I say she can't tell them. She could say, well, I'm not comfortable with this.
But I should go anyhow.
And she could carry someone with her. She can she could carry someone with her. She can make arrangement and tell them that when she comes, if it's okay, she could just go straight inside the office to to write up or whatever she has to do. I can't say, but I feel as though she has, they say, the best interest. Did we not discuss that earlier in chapter 1 or 2, where it says that we have to do what's in the best interest of the company and not just one individual? Help me out here.
That's your position. Okay, fine. Tira, what was your position?
My position is, I do agree with Tamiko's standpoint, but I also said that despite the fact that she took the position, she also should express her feelings and she shouldn't be forced to do something that she doesn't feel comfortable with. You don't have to meet the client to sell prospective products at the establishment. They could let her meet them somewhere else. They could come into the office and sit down and talk, and then maybe they could ask someone else who's more comfortable, because she's new, she's not as comfortable or as experienced as everybody else, to put her feelings aside. So they could find someone else who's willing to go, or who may have had that client prior to her, because she may have just gotten that portfolio because she's new in that role. So we could have just let her meet the client.
So where are you getting from the fact that she's new?
She's new, exactly. She's
They say
seasoned.
she was transferred to the small
Listen
business
to me.
unit.
You work to listen, where it say bank. That mean that people
Yeah.
ain't spending, they ain't dollaraires, they ain't hundredaires, they ain't thousandaires. She must be dealing with millionaires. Put on a professional hat and get
Okay, Tamiko.
You know what? Block me.
Okay, all right. I was playing devil's advocate with you. And Shanquel was very quiet between the two of you. So if I needed someone to break the tie, then I have to go to Shanquel.
So I would agree with the essence of each of them, but I would just take it a step further to say, and probably agree with Tira in that I don't think she should be forced, but then it should also look, because I put into like a religious or moral aspect, if that's something that goes against her morally, and she expresses that, I don't think it's in the interest of the business to still force her to do that. Because then you could potentially be talking about lawsuits, legal ramifications for forcing somebody to do something against their will. So that's my input.
Okay. Thank you very much for arguing the case as presented to you. And yes, she has been transferred to the small business unit. So this is something new. She has been transferred to that area. The common law relating to such employer-employee situation is that an employee should carry out any reasonable instruction of the employer.
Yes, that word again, reasonable.
Is it reasonable to ask this employee who is clearly uncomfortable with the situation to carry out the on-site visit?
No.
The answer is almost certainly no. Teresa could argue that entering the premises at all offends her dignity, and by forcing her to do so, the bank exposes itself to a potential accusation of harassment and ultimately possible action for dismissal. There are, of course, several alternative courses of action available to the bank. It could ask Teresa to take the client to lunch or meet the client at the office. And if the account is so important to the branch, Teresa's manager may be more comfortable about making the visit and take her place.
Well, I was gonna say that next.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if the employee is clearly uncomfortable with the situation to carry out the on-site visit, then arrangements should be made outside of that. If they are clearly uncomfortable, because one, they will be doing the client a disservice by going there. They will not do the job. If they feel uncomfortable, they're not going to do the job that's in the best interest of the bank nor the customer. And so to keep lines clear, the theories that is brought into question is the contract of employment, the legal ramification of employer to employee. Okay.
Fraser,
Mm-hmm.
if I gotta just ask this question.
Sure.
She has a job to do. I take in that under consideration that she may feel uncomfortable in not fulfilling and going to that store. But let's say that the employer didn't move. The employee could really get in trouble for that, because I'm trying to figure it out, because there are a lot of things that a lot of people are uncomfortable with. And I noticed you used the word, that bad legal word, reasonably, within reason. And it's within reason that she could have gone there nonetheless with an amended plan or so. I mean, but
I think the issue for Teresa was she didn't want to go to that establishment.
okay. And I can see Tira's point as well, is that because if they see her, who is a bank employee, coming out of a sex store, that can, because you, like we were saying, out the fish fry, and you coming out of an establishment or have a bear in your hand, that can be perceived as one way as well. Okay.
The thing that comes into question is, that's just under that question time, is reputational risk, which can actually destroy the career of an individual or the future viability of a business. And so persons are wanting to protect their reputation at all costs. And is it reasonable to put them in a position where their reputation may be slanted, even though they were carrying out a job? And the answer is no, it's not reasonable. So alternatives could have been made for her and going into that establishment.
So Ms. Fraser, one
Mhm.
question, sorry, I can make this quick. So like how now, eventually cannibalism, weed, the bank won't get hooked up with someone
you
that's
mean cannabis?
opening up a business like that establishment. You want to send your professional high-end staff to go deal with that situation because they go in that type of store. We think they smoke dope. I'm just saying.
The question is, if the individual who has to carry out the task is uncomfortable, seriously uncomfortable, we don't be just mean, I don't like it. They really have a reaction. It could be for any kind.
Like a fair?
No, not a fear. If someone says for religious reasons, I prefer not to. You have to take
Okay,
that
well,
as,
then that's a difference if they say, because I use.
no, I no, no, don't, that's what I'm saying. I'm not using the word uncomfortable in a light form. I'm using the word uncomfortable in the fact that they are stenching that they're not gonna go because of this reason. Should the question really is, should her job be put on the line because she says she doesn't want to go?
Well, you know, in
In most
today's
cases, yeah, the Bahamas.
9 out of 10 time, her job is going to be on the line, whether they say it or not.
We know how to be going to Bahamas. That job on the line.
Exactly.
You ain't playing no games. You either go or you go home.
No, they tell you go,
Objection or not.
and then you know what to expect later.
Okay, all right, okay. I don't know who you all work for, but
Oh, okay.
there are some things that are non-verbals and there are some things that are verbals. I'm agreeing with that. So let's move on to question number 29. Before y'all get me in trouble. Question 29, I think that was Kendrick and Atia. Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Snows, you want to start or you want me to start?
No, I'll start and then you finish. Okay.
What are the facts?
Pardon?
What are the facts? First, see, I want you to get in the habit of dealing with case studies.
Okay. Michael has written to his professional body asking to be allowed to remain a member. But Michael is serving a life sentence for murder. The rules of the professional body states that anyone serving a prison sentence of more than 3 months can be expelled from membership. So we don't know what Michael's profession is or was now that he's serving a life sentence for murder. But Michael wishes to resurrect his career when he's released. Should he be allowed to retain his membership? It is absolutely up to whomever. It's their discretion, to whether hire Michael back or not. But I mean, he's serving a whole life sentence for murder, but who's to say he is ever going to be employed again in the outside world? So Kendrick, you go ahead.
Okay, the quick version on this is that the facts was, we know that Michael was in prison for murder. And
Michael is in
Michael
prison.
in jail. Michael in jail, he lock up.
Mhm,
Michael gets sentenced to life.
mhm.
Now, the organization in which Michael is a part of, in their bylaws, they have the listen, if you are incarcerated for 3 months, you can be expelled, which means there is a window there that you still can be employed. You still can be a part of this organization because it doesn't definitely say you shall be. There is no absolute there. There's no absolute there. You can be expelled from the membership. And you're asking, should he be allowed to retain his membership? I would say no, because he would expose the institution or whichever institution that he's a part of to the reputational risk. It would be a mess. It would be to reinforce the rules where we say, if we say it's 3 months, anybody who goes to jail for 3 months, we're going to expel you, then we're going to expel you.
Okay. Well, we know that he's serving life, and parole don't happen less than a couple of good years. When you got the possibility of parole doesn't happen when you're serving life until for a long time. So we know it's more than 3 months, for sure. Okay, so the professional body and the council, they could use their discretion to terminate the membership because it does say can be. So they can use their discretion. And you're right with that. However, if they feel that the act of the individual could bring some negative impact to the body itself, then they are within their right to expel him and to not allow him to re-enter. And so when you talk about a conviction, a criminal conviction that is life, that is a serious situation. And the professional body would be more concerned about the reputation of the remaining members or any negative impact that it would have by keeping him in and the person being known to be in. Some would argue that by doing so, it would permanently damage the institute's credibility, while others might say that anyone has a right to rehabilitation, having served their sentence. So it is, the bottom line is, it could be, but from the sounds of it, it might be in the institute's best interest not to let him, allow him to keep his license, to keep his membership in that body. And all of that speaks to reputational capital and in terms of the minimum standards or having a specialized or disciplinary effect to a body. So I think you guys handled those two reasonably well. On page 122, they have a list of things that could be barriers to entry to membership in a professional body, and anything to do with there might be sometimes restrictions in relationship to age or minimum level of qualification, depending on completing a professional examination. They might also have a number of years that you have to give service in order to do X, Y, or Z. And that's usually in relationship to senior partners and in a law firm or residency or operational as opposed to general practice as relates to a doctor, those kinds of things. And whether you should be at a fellowship level in order to be a member of the council, completing a specified number of time, all of that will decide whether or not you are and can be entered into as a professional. So reputation is always a key. And most professional bodies are membership-based, so they require individuals to pay a subscription each year. As long as those subscriptions are paid and their basic standards are maintained, then they will be maintained in the professional body. And the body usually sets specific and explicit standards that would apply as conditions of membership. And the body themselves can lay down any disciplinary procedures for breaches of those standards. So there's usually a council that deals with if there's been any breaches to the particular standard. And the majority of these bodies request that there should be some continuing professional development. And that was something that was introduced in the latter years coming forward. Okay, now, the next thing I want you to do is on page 125. The case is the Easy Cash PLC. So you're going to be looking at the same case, but on page 126, there's two questions, quick questions as relates to that case. The first question is proposed actions that the senior management of Easy Cash could introduce to control the sales environment. And then the second question is, assuming that most of the sales force employed by Easy Cash are professionally qualified and therefore members of a professional body, identify the typical standards that would be expected of that salespeople and in their code of conduct or code of ethics. So you're going to be looking at the same case, which is the easy cash, but there's two different questions. Question one is at the top, and question two is in the middle of the page. And I'm going to switch the groups around a little bit.
And
Sorry.
and confidentiality. So that was the basis of what we all agreed upon. We had a little bit more discussion if Tamika or Kendrick would want to chime in as it pertains to going a step above just the salespeople and looking at it from the sales supervisor perspective and what skills or standards they would need. And the main one that was talked about was, I guess, monitoring, having a knowledge of the profession or the field to know what is a red flag and what to look out for.
Okay. Anything else from your group?
Group?
Okay.
Pretty much summed it up, Ms. Frazier.
Okay. I like how you guys picked on the fundamental principles in terms of the behavior and the integrity of the salespeople, the personal characteristics and that they were fit to do the job that they were doing. They had the knowledge, experience, and also the skills and requirements, so they know how to do the job. The fact that they were registered under a particular, they said a Salesforce, I think, let's go back. Okay. They are a member of a professional group. Another thing that, well, I'll leave that right now. Yeah, I think sufficient attention to real needs of the customers. Okay. And being a member was for professional groups, then they would have to be, there'd be grounds for any disqualification or expulsion if they found that they were focusing on the commissions and not the person's needs, the particular needs, and any appeals process the customers have to go through in order to do that. Okay, well covered, well covered. Next group. That was Tia.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So technically, we had the same facts that it's a large company that sells life insurance and pension products to the general public, and that it has long-term investments, and the sales force is paid through a combination of flat salary and commission earnings, and that the government report criticized was highly critical of the life and pension industry, accusing Salesforce of mis-selling policies in order to maximize commission income. And our question was, propose action that the senior management of Easy Cash PLC could introduce to control the sales. Well, technically what they could have done, especially because no institution needs to be zeroed in by any sort of negative criticism or news about their company. I think what he can do is just have a powwow with his sales team just to say and reiterate the integrity that they should all possess when going out seeking customers and also trying to sell the products to the customers. As the other group said, you have to show them that they could trust you, because this is a long-term investment that they're investing in. They actually have to pay monthly to these insurance agents, and they should want the best thing for their clients. It shouldn't be where it's just the bottom line of getting that high commission. And we said going in the big round table or being the millionaire sales agent for the company. He should reiterate the importance of putting the customer first, making sure that what you sell is what actually suits the customer. And maybe even as the manager, just look over the policy that is sold to the clients to make sure it best suits them. Like he could say, well, I don't think this is best suited for that person. Maybe we should sell them this. So make sure that they're not actually cheating the customers of what they should actually have for what they are paying for.
Okay. Anything else from your other member?
No, that sums it up.
Okay, great stuff, great stuff. This group kind of backed into something that I thought was missed in the facts. You both said that the sales force was paid through a combination of flat salary and commissions. But the fact that the commissions on the premiums was as high as 75%, that is something, that is a major factor as well, because 75% is a very high commission rate on those policies. And so not only that it was a flat fee and commissions, but that the commissions was very high. What they could have done also too was introduce a very definitive and clear policy on the selling standards expected of all customer-facing personnel. They could have also modified the reward system to remove the incentive to sign up customers. Okay, they could have made the commission more balanced with the flat salary. They could ensure that total compliance with requirements of the terms of business document is issued. So in addition to seeing the customer, then there should be a fact sheet of some sort that the agent would have to complete, which will show why they're recommending what they're recommending, and it's in accordance to the best interest of the customer. So in addition to turning in the application itself, you turn in this fact sheet that was signed off on by you and the customer itself, which will show how you arrive at the recommendation that you're suggesting. They could also have recommendation, ensure that any recommendation is documented, is issued to the customers that articulates the reason the products are being recommended, and a comprehensive record of all customers' interviews and correspondence are maintained according with the statutory requirements. And then they could also do spot checks. So after, say you've had X amount of a policy, so the manager could in themselves then reach back or circle back to the customers just as a spot check to see if there's any issues or they understand exactly what they bought. And in some cases, it's amazing too. A lot of persons would come back having bought a policy, having maintained it for some time, and say they really didn't understand what it is they were sold. And so they could make sure that those things are in place, and also make sure that the agent, the salesperson, know of any disciplinary procedures for dealing with any breaches. So they know that there's something that is, because it's easy for persons to not pay attention if they feel nothing's going to happen once there's a breach. So they should be monitoring that, and they should also be monitoring the customer satisfaction. As a callback, did you like how you was handled? Did you understand XYZ and whatever have you, so that they actually know exactly what is going on at all times. Okay, I want us to look at another case. To get you all very familiar with handling case studies. This one is on page 128. It's the Courtesy PLC. And the questions for that is on page 129. The first question actually discusses compare and contrast the views of Susan Hollis and Sam Ormsby from the perspective of their attitudes to stakeholders. And then I want to, on page 130, the second question is discuss the matters that the Board of Courtesy PLC should consider in responding to the objections to the billboard campaign. That's on page 130. So those are the two that I need you to look at. Any questions before I prepare the break room? On page 128, case study, Courtesy PLC. Okay, I think we lost our Tia. And I was lost a minute ago too. My internet went down. I know you guys didn't miss me. So, okay, here we go.
Oh, no,
Let's talk.
Tia went missing. She fell off.
Yeah. There's one disadvantage with using internet services. So who's going to volunteer to get the start? Let's look at the facts. One time, all the facts.
Okay, that's us, Tia. I think that's us, yeah.
So we doing the facts as a group?
We could do that.
Okay, we had question 1. Compare and contrast the views of Susan Hollis and Sam Armstrong from the perspective of their attitudes, perspective of the attitudes of stakeholders. Okay, the facts is about this whole case study. We had a genuine lady who started the company. Company became successful. A board loved her. The general public loved her. She was perceived and looked at and held in high esteem by the public. The public is the stakeholders, okay? Because she actually wanted to take her company after the board introduced it and introduce a code of ethics to further enhance the company's reputation. Meanwhile, we have this next fellow on the next end, Mr. Sam Armstrong, who is the marketing director. Sam is only interested in making money. Bottom line, he's not interested in what the stakeholders' opinion is, what anybody else's opinion of them are, but rather he's just into making money. That is a significant difference compared to both of them. In that, what was raised as a concern and brought up by the non-executive director was a billboard that Mr. Sam put up that had suspect advertising on it. And what was discovered from that point is that his ideology is that I don't think we should be introducing no code of conduct or ethics, because if we slip up, there will be quote unquote criticism. And eventually, with this billboard, he screwed up. So, and he was very dismissive, more or less, of the religious group who took exception to the billboard, whereas Ms. Hollins more or less had a normative type of thinking in that she was more interested in the people. He had more or less an instrumental type of thinking where it was all I can do what all there is to do and make as much money. So she was for the people, and he was basically dismissive of the people or the stakeholders.
Okay. Anything else from your group? Anybody want to add?
No, that's it. Be good.
Okay. So the statement is read that as far as the social responsibility is concerned, Susan is a deep ecologist and Sam is a pristine capitalist. You're only looking for the bottom line being the money. Okay. Group 2.
So we're starting with the basis that the facts have already been covered, and we just jumping into the question.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, because Kenrick covered everything.
Okay, so our question was
My
discuss.
apologies.
It's fine. It's fine.
No,
It's fine.
That's fine.
Our question was to discuss the matters that the Board of Courtesy should consider in responding to the objections to the billboard campaign.
Mhm.
So I guess the general theme of the objections to the campaign would have been that they were offensive more often than not. So because the board is trying to incorporate this new ethics code, things that they should have discussed would have been the company reputation, would have been what would the impact be to the stakeholders. I thoroughly examined the company's current actions versus what they want to do with the proposed code to make sure that there's no conflict of interest or no room for anybody to say that you're being hypocritical.
Okay.
Tamiko, do you want to add anything?
No, I'm good.
What about whether or not the actions are consistent with the strategic objectives of the company? Was it?
If the
Repeat that
ethical,
again. Sorry.
The actions are consistent with, are the actions consistent with the strategic objectives of the company?
you mean like the billboard campaign, those
Yes.
actions?
Mhm.
Oh, that would be a good question. Because then at that point would raise another can of worms
Well,
as to
the objections that were raised, let me just make sure. Some of the facts that was missing was the board is consistent, well, the board is considering the possibility of launching a code of ethics because some feel that it was necessary as raw materials are brought in from less developed countries and often from producers with an extremely low level of income. So the company adopts honorable policies and does not exploit its suppliers. So it is felt that the code of ethics will highlight this genuine commitment to their suppliers. So
I guess that area was a little gray because it's, what are they saying there? They're saying because they supply these lower income companies with business, they patting us up on the back?
yes,
Okay.
and they adopt policies that does not exploit these suppliers. So they in other words, they want to be seen as looking out for the small man.
Okay.
Okay. And Susan is in favor of introducing this code.
Yeah,
Okay.
but Sam don't feel away.
Sam is the marketing director, and he doesn't see the same thing. He doesn't feel the same thing. So what in response to the objections should be, two of the non-executive directors raised concerns about the apparent conflict between introducing a code of ethics and the continuing efforts of Sam's department to commission advertising that shock the public and sometimes cause offense. And there's in particular a billboard advertising, which was offensive to a particular small religious group. They felt that the company should make it peace with the group by at least acknowledging their offense as being caused before placing itself on high moral ground with a published code of ethics. So in other words, there's rift in the community. And what one group is saying is maybe we should settle that first before we go putting out there that we are this holier than thou company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So potential positive and negative on the company's reputation, any cultural expectation of those exposed to the promotion, any organizational field, what is generally accepted within an industry or sector, all of those things should be considered before making an official response. And as it relates to this small group, disturbed by this billboard. It says the extent to which the company regards this as a valid objection will be determined by its ethical stance. And this could be discussed with reference that the company could be regarded from the short-term shareholder perspective through to the broader shape of society. It is dependent on how widely accountable is defined in this stakeholder and this minority group. Even though it's a minority group, it is a stakeholder. And to those objecting, their views will always be that the company has a responsibility not to offend. And the extent to which this is valid is dependent on whether a more objective observer takes a broad or narrow view of accountability. And so what it's saying is that they should not just dismiss the objection. They should look at any impact of the objection and what those objecting does it hold water in some regard, rather than being very dismissive and just going on the track. The Sam is like, put up an X billboard, we gotta do. And Susan and the other team members are saying, well, hold on, let's put out this code of ethics. And Sam is saying, but if you do that, then people are going to hold you to these standards that you put out. So just hold back and let us continue doing what we're doing. And that's the whole question. Does the company want to ruin their reputation in the marketplace based on taking a very flippant approach to the issues and the attitudes brought up by the individuals involved? On the bottom of page 132, the question comes up of codes of practice, conduct, and ethics. And in some cases, the practice, conduct, and ethics could be captured in one document where this is what we're going to do, this is what we expect you guys to do, and these are the things that we're holding ourselves out to be. And it's very important that you know the difference between rules-based versus principle-based system. A rules-based approach lays down exactly what members can and cannot do. This is the rule. I didn't lay down the law. A principle-based approach identifies a set of broad principles with which members should comply, and then leave it to the practitioners to formulate their own approaches to these certain issues. Once they fall in line with the basic principles of what is expected, that's fine. They lay down their own laws and rules as relates to those principles. If it's a rules-based environment, everything that can and cannot be done will be laid down in the rule itself. And most professional bodies have a mixture of rules-based and principle-based approaches. And ethical conduct is usually defined in terms of principles rather than hardcore rules. And so on the top of page 33, they show you what is typical in the rules-based scenario and a principle-based scenario. It's important that you know the difference. Rules-based approach is short-term horizons. The rules have to be revised regularly. They have specific prescriptive behaviors based on prevention and detection. They have a detailed rules and constraints. They focus on literal interpretation. The standards imposed objectively, and rules are mandatory for all members. With a principle-based approach, they are more enduring principles that remain largely unchanged over longer time horizons. Prevention of unprofessional conduct, usually driven by core principles of the organization. And the focus is on the spirit of compliance and reliance to some extent on self-regulation. So once you act within a certain level of basic principles, there is no do's and don'ts. You just deal with the principle of the matter and you're left to regulate yourself. And there's some degree of subjectivity in interpreting the code. and some discretion is used in applying the codes. I want to jump down to on page 134. It asks the question, who develops and administers codes of conduct and ethics? And they mentioned that professional bodies, trade associations, these are the ones who would normally develop codes of ethics for their bodies. And a typical code, codes are a set of written standards which all members are expected to comply with. Now, these codes, they are voluntary in that the individual can choose to remain a member or not. So as the codes are laid down, the members can decide whether they want to stay in the membership and abide by the code or leave the membership. And they are applicable to the individual, an individual person, and not an organization. There are some codes that codes of ethics are issued by professional bodies, formulated and imposed on the individuals. But corporate codes of conduct are usually designed to promote the confidence of the stakeholders in the company rather than the individuals. So you have individual code of ethics, and then you have what they call corporate code of conduct. In other words, this is how the organization is supposed to operate. So most codes produced by professional bodies are principle-based. The principles usually allude to acting in the public interest. What's in the best interest of the public? Fundamental ethical principles embraced by the code, and setting out your safeguards that would apply and address the threats. What will happen for non-compliance? And all the things that they talk about in terms of minimum standards to any code is on page 135 and 136. Integrity, objectivity, knowledge, skill, and due care, confidentiality. And it's amazing how, despite every code that speaks to confidentiality in every organization, we still hear information out on the streets. Somebody tells somebody something. And so that's a serious situation that we need to look at in terms of confidentiality. And a lot of we have a lot of legislation now talking about data protection and the right to privacy and those kinds of things. And it's because despite all of our efforts, information still get out into the public domain, depending on what it is. So I could leave the rest of that for you. We don't necessarily need to get into what's on page 139, which is the specifics of the code of professional conduct in this particular group. But just to look at it in terms of the types of things that would be included in the code on 139. I'm not going to ask you specifically what is in this particular code, but just to let you be familiar with some of the things that can be covered. Honesty, trust, fairness, integrity, diligence, appropriate confidentiality and sensitivity, managing conflicts of interest, any examples that is being shown. In reference to, I'm on page 142, what is the difference between management and leadership? Anybody want to stab a guess at that? The difference between management and leadership.
Management, manage the situation. Leaders lead the way. That's the simplest as I can put it. Managers are ladders and leaders are leaders.
Run it again?
Just to be the comparison of where you would use, you have leaders and then you have bosses. The best scenario I could use is if a man and a dog is walking together and the dog is in front of him. Is he leading the dog or is he managing to control the dog?
Who asking the question, me or you?
Managers manage the situation, but leaders.
Anybody other than Kendrick? I didn't get his take on it.
I would think it's more so piggybacking off of what he said, is more so like a leader intrinsically motivates you versus a manager just having that position and doing task. So they don't go over and beyond to inspire, empower. They just say, this is your task. I'm going to oversee that, versus a leader who is more concerned with your holistic development.
Yeah. Managers typically, leaders come and show you, lead by example.
But then aren't managers leaders also? You don't think
Half
so?
of them don't know how
No,
to do it.
ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Well, good managers then.
I'm staying on that.
Yes, I think that a leader could be a manager, but not all managers are leaders.
No, not all. Good managers show leadership skills.
A manager. Oh, sorry.
Good one. Hi, welcome back.
I believe that leaders inspire, and if you hold a position in an institution, a title that said that you're a manager, but you actually inspire people to go above and beyond what they think that they can do, then you're no longer a manager. You are now a leader.
But
Go ahead, Tia.
You're a manager, Kendrick, and as a leader, I feel the type of your personality, you bring out the best of people if you're their manager. You would lead them, but you would also bring out the best of them by being a leader too.
All I know is that managers,
Leaders make managers, but not everybody can manage.
I deliberately jumped on that because I know there's going to be lots of discussion in that particular area. But to put it simply, management combines several functions, one of which could be leadership.
Okay.
Good managers do lead. Okay, so just like planning, organizing, controlling, coordinating, they could exercise leadership as well. So leadership is just one of the special dynamics of management. And that is, some persons just manage, some managers, not good managers, some managers just deal with tasks. You have to get the task done, and they control the task, and they organize and coordinate tasks. And that's the end of it. But when you're talking about leadership, you're concerned with influencing others and getting the best out of the team and the individuals so they can aspire to do better, to be better. And so it's not only to the benefit of you getting the job done, but it's a benefit to the person as well and the organization. So leaders are more inspirational, more influencing. People want to follow them and the direction that they're taking. Whereas management is, you got a job to do it. I just control, organize, plan, and coordinate the task of the team. And whether or not the team grows or the individual on the team grows, it's neither here nor there. So that's what it's all about in terms of leadership. influencing others and getting the best out of them for the mutual benefit of themselves and the organization. That's leadership. And yes, there are some managers that are leaders, and then there are some managers that are not leaders. So if you're unfortunate enough to have one of those that cannot influence, inspire, and try to get the best out of you, well, so be it. But you should know the difference. And leadership is when you begin to influence others and to help them to get the best, be the best they can be. And then too, it calls for the manager or the leader to want to be the best that they can be. And they are not intimidated by the growth of the individuals in their team. There are some managers who feel to protect their job, they only could let you know so much because they could see your eagerness, your growth, your willingness could be, what's the word I'm looking for? They feel a threat. Yeah, a threat to their position. But I always say, as a leader, if I know how to spell cat and I teach you how to spell cat, that don't mean I don't know how to spell cat. That just means we have two people now who know how to spell cat. So any confident manager will want to teach and give and help to grow as best they can everybody in their sphere of management and make them the best that they could be. Because we all learn from each other at some point. And there's always more to be learned. So that's a classical definition of management versus leadership. And finally, what I would tell you is that short section on page 143, corporate codes. You should go over that in particular. Corporate codes of conduct or ethics can be produced by groups, organizations, or individual organizations. The content of a typical corporate code of ethics might contain the following, some of the things I would consider: a general commitment by the company and employees to ethical standards, certain values such as honesty, integrity, trust, and those kinds of things, a commitment to the interests of customers and stakeholders, a commitment to comply with the law and any regulatory requirements and universally accepted best practices. So they always want to be doing what is in the best interest of all parties concerned. A commitment to fair competition and avoidance of any restrictive or antitrust policies. An expression of respect for the environment, including some reference to policies that will support this objective. And a commitment to the community and social responsibility. And so these codes of ethics will normally be a formal document implemented at the highest level of management and signed off by the main board of directors, and they will be shared and communicated to everybody else. And so they also mention that some companies go further and engage the services of outside contractors to help them to craft what that code might be, and they implement it in accordance with the management direction. So, and when they go to outside bodies to do it, it's because they want it to be a little bit more objective than somebody involved in the day-to-day management of the organization. So you definitely need to know the difference as relates to corporate code of ethics, corporate code of practice, and also code of conduct. But that would be on the pages at the very end of that particular chapter. Any questions, comments? Keep in mind the 9 features of a professional. Keep in mind the barriers to entry and all those stuff, because they went into great length and discussing each one of those features in great length. So it's obvious that it's very important that you know those features of a profession.
Mr. Frazier, just a question. In certain aspects, I know you have to read about maybe a paragraph to get the definition of maybe one or two of them. Would it make to be more feasible, would it make sense to probably look for a more reduced way of getting the definition itself online? Or would you prefer just straight from the book as it is?
I don't. If it comes to a definition, these words are universally accepted definitions. So if you say, for instance, fiduciary responsibility, they give you a whole 3 paragraphs on what that is. And then you look into the dictionary and it talks about property held in trust for another. Simple. Once you say that, then I understand what that means, because that's a universal situation. I'm not expecting you to learn what's in the book, that you'll have to regurgitate sentence by sentence exactly what is the case. Some people might even do a one-liner and say, for example, and then they give me an example of a situation where that is displayed, which is fine. Again, I'm more concerned with you understanding what is meant as opposed to being able to repeat, like parrot form, what it says in the book itself. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, ma'am, it did.
Okay. And again, too, with the exception of case studies, I don't expect anything more than 4 or 5 lines to explain any concept that we would have discussed so far. And if you decide to add an example, well, this is not one of the exams where the more you write, because I know fluff when I see it. Okay.
Oh, that word again. Fluff.
But did I say that before tonight?
No, another lecturer said the exact same thing. I don't like fluff.
I don't like fluff. I don't like fluff. But if I don't like fluff. And I can tell when you're fluffing it.
I heard you, Kendrick, but Miss Fraser said she wants it short and to the point, so I could do that.
Yeah. As lecturers and facilitators, we know fluff when we see it. And after you go to the 3rd line of fluff, you say, you know what? You don't even get to the bottom of that paragraph, because it gets fluffier and fluffier as it goes on. So if you could find a short way to explain exactly what is meant by any of these concepts that we would have discussed, fine. The most writing would be when it relates to the different approaches to ethics, like Kohlberg's approach, or Owen's approach, or Plato's approach. And, those are the deontological way of approaching ethics. In explaining that, you might write a few lines, but the majority of it is short and sweet. Short and sweet. So I endorse that other lecturers' concept of fluff. We don't like fluff. I just hope by now you are or could have already identified the case that you're going to be working on, because immediately after, in addition to turning in your case study for that day, that class in the evening is to discuss some of the cases that you've submitted. So I would also ask you to be prepared to, in general terms, share what you found on your particular case with the group. And that could very well be a day that we will not be doing any recordings, because the delicate balance of what is being discussed, as well as that may not be, I mean, it doesn't help another student to understand any concepts that might be in the book itself. So there's no real practical learning experience from those case studies. But I'm going to be looking for the fact that you covered all the information that I was asking for, and the fact that you are able to analyze the case appropriately, what might have happened as a result of those things in the case. And if you feel so inclined to send me a first draft, I'll be more than happy to have a look at it. But I also want you to be in a position to discuss in a few minutes the case that you actually looked at, and why you particularly thought that was a very interesting case. And there's lots of cases out there. I mean, it's amazing how high and how wide some of these scandals go. CEOs, politicians, kings and queens. It is amazing. Any other questions, concerns, comments?
Ms. Frazier, before you said barriers to entries, you said something else, but you froze, so I didn't hear the first part.
But Gerald, you know, I don't even remember either, right? Because most of the things I'm saying is in the moment, you know. I think, I thought what I might have said was that I would expect you to know those features of a profession.
Okay.
Yeah. Because barriers of entry was one of the features.
Okay.
That might have been it.
Okay.
Those nine features that where they say that these features distinguish a profession.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I've been having internet challenges all night, so I had to end up actually hotspotting off my cell phone.
Ms. Fraser,
I'm here.
the recording that you do, like we can go back and listen to it over again, or?
Yes, it's recorded to the cloud.
Okay then.
Yeah.
So I could just go to the cloud.
Now, don't ask me how you do that, but I think
Well, I was going to.
no. I think BIFs have Bombs into Financial Services. They have a listing that comes up under their name, and they would have ethics and professionalism as opposed to any other class. And then you could just click on all the ethics ones.
Okay, all right, that sounds good.
Yeah.
That'll be my week.
Okay.
Another
But
thing,
I will tell you, nothing beats reading the book, reading the material,
I'm gonna read the
going
book
through
too. I need the book and I gotta talk all of this
and highlight and everything else, and work on those case studies, because the case studies in itself is 20% of the grade. So you're halfway home by doing a nice and a complete case study. And all of you would have been participating in the class itself. So that's another 10%. So that's an easy 30% right there. And all you need is 70. All you need is 70 to really pass this class. So there's no reason why all of you shouldn't be able to get an A.
See, I take this book is Miss Fraser.
Yeah, but remember I told you the methodology behind getting through it. Look at the objectives. Look at the keywords in the back. Find them in the chapter. Highlight those, and that's what you're studying. Because if the book is saying by the end of this chapter you should be able to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, then all you gotta do is look for A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And the rest of it is fluff.
I look in this book and I didn't being in chapter 1 must see about 10 times. Oh. Yeah.
Well, that might be good as well as it bad, because in chapter 1 is where they actually separate or define the basic approaches to ethics. But beyond that, it is from a individual perspective, from an organizational perspective, on how the organization impacts the community in which they live, comes up. And so there's that environmental aspect. So the whole concept behind ethics is that we want to do good for everybody. We want to put them in a good environment. They want to be a positive environment. We want to not, like the golden rule, you don't want to do unto others. Do unto others, you want it to be done unto you. Then you in turn have to be acting and behaving above board. Any ethical dilemma is what we're going to be looking at next. And any conflict of interest, you know how to behave when those things happen and arise.
Yes, ma'am.
But if you have gotten to the place where your ethical radar is malfunctioning, in other words, you already drink the Kool-Aid, there's no help for you. All I can do is pray. But basic core values, I mean, we have a conscience. We know when we're doing something wrong. We know.
Conscience, is that something that you purchase these days?
We should know. We
know.
We
So
should.
most of the times, when there has been an ethical dilemma, persons know willingly, and they just decide, they make a decision that they're gonna do what's wrong.
And then go to jail?
Well, some people believe by the time the case come up, it'll take so long that they won't go to jail.
Since
Or
I
they
start the class, sorry.
Sorry?
Since I start the class every other day, these people so unethical. Oh my God.
Yeah. Ms. Frazier, you really open my eyes to a lot of things that go on.
Yes.
In the workforce, and you'll be like, Jesus, they need Ms. Frazier. Because
They need to go to
you're
school.
a professional.
Let's take up a course.
Well, that's why, on a serious note though, that's why BIFS has decided that ethics and professionalism is one of those mandatory courses, especially in financial services. But what we know is if a person is determined to be unethical and act dishonestly, they will do it no matter what. So we are just hoping that you guys get sensitized enough that it bothers you and you don't do it. But if the stakes are high and high enough, people got a price. Or they say, well, the manager's doing it, so we go. 2 wrongs make a right. Yeah, right.
Yeah. I tell you, every other day, they so unprofessional.
You should have your own basic, like I said, I've been in the insurance industry for 43 years. And I've never thought for a minute to take somebody's premium and not turn it in. Some people coming in 2 years' time, they've done that,
Wow.
you know? And so you have to have a certain level of self-esteem that there's a line that you will not go beyond. And stealing is one of those things that I cannot imagine. I mean, it came from home bringing. You know, you couldn't bring things home saying, I brought this home and my parents knew they didn't buy it. Now you could have a kid could have a whole electronic equipment in the bedroom, and you go, oh, okay.
Well, no, Miss Fraser. I old school like you. I used to kill my boy for a pen. Where you get that pen from? Until the parent approached me and say, you could calm down. My daughter asked me to give an extra pen for him, but then send a note. Because I was a parent, I was killed. Send a note.
And in the news tonight, we have a parent who's just been brought before the courts for killing for.
To me, you have to instill a certain level of basic core values in your kids. But like again, you don't go overboard necessarily. I mean, a pen or a pencil. I don't know. Lucky for me, I don't have any children at this day and time, because the things I see in here, I know I'd been locked up in Foxville like a couple of times over. I'd been in maximum security.
I tell them, I say, y'all growing up these kids with no boundary. How you getting that fridge and didn't ask for juice? Water's free. Anything else you ask for. But I never had that problem. But in the homestead, the grandchildren, they do whatever they wish. No boundaries.
So what you're suggesting is that
They need to teach them from parents
relax their standards after they get beyond their own children.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Like you say, in my era, we get killed with the beating. We do what we're not supposed to do. Or what they tell us we're supposed to do, you get beaten. You could go get your own tampering switch. Like, I was in that era, tampering switch.
Oh, okay.
But now, grandparents, leave that child alone. My God, y'all can kill me if y'all talk to them like that, but that's what we were accustomed to. He ain't kill us, eh?
Not a bit.
No, it didn't. And sometimes looking back, you understand why they were so adamant about some things, because they know some of the challenges that we will face out in the marketplace, and then we went outside of their presence, and people are coming from different backgrounds, having different core values and basic core values, and now they are cohabitating in the same work environment. So you leave something on the top of your desk and figure you could just go and come back, and a couple minutes is gone, and everybody looking around like, I wonder where it went.
I tell them, my culture ain't their culture. And then I don't say a word after that.
I might have to come to your job and find out what's going on. But I'm glad, Tira, I'm happy that you are becoming more aware of these things that would fall in line with ethical and unethical behavior. And we're gonna wait until we start talking about conflict of interest.
Oh, that's a hot topic.
That has always been a very hot topic in every one of my sessions.
That does not exist in the Bahamas.
Say it again.
That does not exist in the Bahamas.
The definition or the act?
No. There's no such thing as conflict of interest in the Bahamas. There's
okay.
No conflict of interest.
Okay. You want to do some research and come back for next week? Because the topic for next week is ethical dilemmas and conflict of interest.
No, I-
Sarcasm.
not in our country. It can't be it just seems as if on so many levels of society, and I'm not gonna go into that. I'll vent next week. God's
Yeah.
willing.
Okay, okay. Because one of the objectives is to explain what is meant by conflict of interest. Explain ways in which certain dilemmas and conflicts may be resolved. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay?
I think the school teachers them need to take up this course. That should be mandatory. I only say that because they need to teach the children them from grade 1. Like you say, don't go in the store and eat them people grade. Because that was normal. I mean, for who was great.
Exactly.
Parents
But-
don't
but-
even force it. School
That's
teachers.
not, no, but
can't
you know, when
the
the
hell.
children them, sorry, but you know, when the children them small, they just say, oh, my teacher say, like teachers God to them. My teacher say, that's what they go with. No, mommy, my teacher say. So that's why I said they must need to start with the teachers. Because they are a big influence on the kids, especially when they're small and the kids like them.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's not like one of them where, you pack them up and carry them to school the next day and tell them, as of this day, they live in the teacher. Because anytime somebody else that they can influence you more than me, then, you living with the police, you living with the teacher, you living with the pastor. Let them pay for your school fees and all the rest of it. Yeah. But like I said, I'm glad I don't have to raise toddlers in this day and time because there's so many influences and negative exposure that comes right up in their face on every little kind of social media instrument that's around. And the question becomes, at what age is it acceptable for them to have their own cell phones?
18.
At what age they can lock their room door?
What door? You
Exactly.
What
What
door?
door?
What door? I'll take the whole door
Got
out.
our house door.
You lucky you have windows. No. You rent a room. I give you a room, and that's where you sleep because I say you could sleep there. You make me mad, dog come inside, you go outside. Don't do it.
I never had key for my mother's house. I never had a key. I always had to knock on the door.
My son didn't know.
I never
My
had
son
key.
didn't know the phone number. You talking to me, go. If they ask him what his phone number is, he said, my mother said, I don't pay the phone bills. I don't know the number.
Social
my
service.
Check my records.
Oh, look at the social service.
Social services.
Tyrion, next week, be prepared to turn on your camera because I need to look in your face. So when I see in the paper this woman going down doing the bank lane shuffle, or it ain't bank lane no more. It's, where is it? South Street shuffling.
No, it ain't. The mother is the child. You say, Lord. That poor child.
Well, he's not dead. He's 20 now, so he lived through it.
Okay.
I've
Don't
long.
worry.
What scars?
That
What
builds
scars?
character. Builds character.
I think I need to stop recording this